The intention was,
Yeah.
my intention was to keep a low-key day going so I could rest my knee one more day. My right knee is acting up from an injury from a couple years ago. All of a sudden, one day, a month and a half ago, it just started to hurt really bad. So it's on the mend. I know that I can, work on it myself, which I have been. So I did some hemisync stuff after. I did some more hemisync stuff this morning, and it's getting good. Yeah. So it was a good day. There's a craft where you can make a Christmas tree out of a book. You fold in the pages all the way around. And I'm making a couple of those for my friends. So I spent some time doing that. I read a little bit. It was a quiet day. The kids were still at Hannah's. They come over today. And I think we're going to go grocery and Christmas shopping with them.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quiet. How about you?
So I slept off after our conversation.
Yeah, right. It was probably 10 o'clock by the time you got to sleep, huh?
Yeah. So I also do something which I like, this content that I put on Facebook, you see, and on LinkedIn also, and in YouTube channel also. So I actually repurpose one piece of content into several things. So what
Good.
I do is I uh, I directly address the LinkedIn audience and then record it by another camera from the sideways. So it goes to YouTube. And yeah, because I cannot directly record from LinkedIn. Yeah. So,
Okay.
so I love that. I love doing that.
So you're pretty technically advanced, is what you're telling me.
Not tech. Actually, is a small tricks. If you have two mobiles, one laptop, then
Yeah.
you can just put over your laptop the other mobile, and
Okay.
just go about it while you can see if somebody is reacting with another mobile. So
Oh,
that is what I do.
so you put it on YouTube that I saw on your YouTube station. And where was the other place you said you put it?
No, it was only on YouTube. I didn't put this onto other places because it was my own thing.
Oh, you just another angle, a different angle.
So it was not for the audience. It was for the book. So
Oh,
so it is in my channel. If somebody wants to see the draft, the raw the conversation that we had, they can
I see.
watch it. But why would people see? But even if then I have seen already 16 people have watched it. I don't know who is watching.
Yeah. There were,
So,
uh, there were 11 views, I think, at the time that I saw it. So, yeah, cool. All
yeah.
right.
And I also have a podcast channel going on. So there also I see people from Virginia are the main audience, and that is where also I get surprised. Who in
Wow.
Virginia is reading
Yeah.
or listening to
Yeah.
that? So I'm used to this kind of surprises. So mm, I don't ask many questions or don't investigate into it. By nature, I don't investigate because of so many surprises in life. So people keep on asking. You didn't even ask why that has happened so many times. Then I realize I should have asked, but I don't feel that need. No, uh,
Yeah.
so so that's what. And then I slept. And this morning, uh, Saturday is off for me, holiday. So the entire
Mhm.
day I have oiled my hair.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and
You once a week?
Yes.
Oh,
So this is winter, so I don't shampoo it off. So I just oil and
mm-hmm.
yes, and I have prepared some oil, with amla. Amla, do you know? Gooseberry,
Mm.
Indian gooseberry. So if you cook that with mustard oils, then it becomes a healthy hair oil, kind of. So
What oil do you use? Coconut?
uh,
Coconut
uh,
oil?
now it is mustard oil.
Mustard oil. Wow. I would love going into your grocery stores. When I go into the Mediterranean stores here
Uh,
in Cleveland, down here, there isn't any down here, but I'm fascinated by all the choices that are new.
uh,
Just like you talk about being surprised. It's like, oh, look at that. Look at that. Yeah. Cool.
yes. And
Um, I was going to ask you how you celebrated Diwali.
Diwali, actually, there are different cultures in India. So
Mm.
in our part, Diwali is for the uh, the uh, the souls, the souls of our forefathers. We
Oh,
invite them before the Sera. Just before Diwali, it is the Sera. The Sera is the goddess Durga celebration. So it is just before Diwali. And
oh,
15 days before the Sera, we actually invite all those souls who are invited from generations. We invited them all, and
mhm.
they were seen off during Diwali. That is what we do. Other people
Okay.
celebrate it like Ram. He has returned from his forest living, and after conquering Lanka, you know that story, right? So many
Yeah,
people have many stories around
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And many people also celebrate it like Lakshmi Puja. Like it
Mm.
is, she is the goddess of wealth. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that also is celebrated. Many people celebrate in many ways. Bengalis, if you know Bengalis, they celebrate it like Kali Puja. Kali
Okay.
is Vivekananda, if you know. Um,
Kali is goddess, right? The goddess Kali
yes,
is
yes.
a female goddess.
Yes, yes. So she was worshipped by Ramakrishna Paramahansa. So he was Vivekananda's guru, and
Okay.
so it goes like all kinds of cultures. So many people celebrate by this, wasting on what you say, wasting on this. Uh, some celebration like firecrackers and all, and many
Mm-hmm.
people celebrate like just silent worshipping. Uh, so it is like that. So for me,
Uh-huh.
in my area, it is that uh, seeing the forefathers of those were invited,
Okay.
and before that, the Dasera time, actually we keep fast for brothers, one day, Ashtami.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
for us, it is like that. And that is the major celebration time, Dasera and Diwali.
And when and what is the celebration with all the colored powder when everybody throws the colored powder all over? Does that happen in your area or is that
Yes,
somewhere else?
yes, yes. It is happening all over the country now. It is
Uh-uh.
during Holi.
Holy.
That is another celebration that will be coming up in um, spring. So just after the winter is over, then it is celebrated in March, around
Uh,
March.
okay.
Yeah.
And the purpose is what?
So Krishna, it is around Krishna's story. So Krishna
Oh,
was was surrounded by gopis. You know, he many people loved him. He is a god of love. So
Mm-hmm.
um, he celebrated it in his area when he was there. So
Mm-hmm.
it is continued. Like if you want to convey your love or friendship to people, then you
Mm-hmm.
celebrate it with colors. That is the yeah.
I see. um it's beautiful to watch, from an outsider that knows nothing about it. It's just, to me, it's just amazing. It's just an amazing thing to watch, and to see the streets and everything around everyone with color. um
Yeah.
I know what I meant to tell you yesterday. There's a filmmaker and an artist. His name is Paul Davids, and
Oh,
his, have you heard of him?
I think
He
yeah.
Yeah, he's been on Next Level Soul with Alex Ferrari a couple times, I guess. But I watched him the other day, and I didn't know that he was going to talk about Jesus spending time in India from the age of 12 till 30. So there's a theory, a pretty proven theory, according to a lot of people and according to Paul, that he went to India and Kashmir, and he did a streaming film. You can stream this film on his website, and so I watched that. It's maybe it was like 45 minutes. It was pretty long, and then they talk about supposedly his mother. He and his mom went together, and Mary died while she was there. And there's her tomb. I mean, there's a place that they say is her tomb, and it has a structure over it. And then there's a place that they say is his tomb. And you may already know this, but in India, he was called Isa, I think. Isa.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so I watched that last night, from having watched Paul with Alex the day before, and then I remembered, oh, I wanted to watch that. So that's something I did later on the afternoon. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And um and they talked about um a city in the Himalayas where the monks are. Is it called Nemis? Nemis, Nemis, where there is supposedly a um, a written manuscript that indicates Jesus went up there and visited. So before the monks put it behind, the monks now have it in a case with a bunch of other books, and they're not allowed to open it until their main guy comes back. And it's been 40 or 50 years, so it's not under lock and key. They just know they're not supposed to open it. So when they interviewed this one monk, he was saying, there's probably a good chance it's here, but because our main monk hasn't come back and given us permission, we can't open the bookcase and look at it. But very interesting stuff
Yeah,
for for a Westerner that grew up hearing, oh, and they said because Jesus didn't die after they took him off the cross. He wasn't up there long enough. He was only up there 5 hours or so because the Sabbath was coming, and they couldn't leave him up there on the Sabbath. So they're saying they took him down, they washed him up. Joseph of Arimathea and I forget who else got his body, and he recovered, and then he went with his mom to India. No, I'm getting that out of order. No, that's right. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah,
it was pretty interesting. Plus, I got to see a lot of India too, in the film.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's
Mm,
what I did. It was low key.
mm,
Yeah. Today will be today will be much different if we take off and go to the store with the kids.
mm,
And tonight I'm supposed to go with a group of women to see the play called The Christmas Carol with Scrooge, you know, and the ghosts that appear to him. There's 5 or 6 of us that are going to go see that at the theater in Lewisburg, the next big city. That's about 15 miles away. That's the closest grocery store. So here in Alderson, we have a Family Dollar and we have a Dollar General, and they have frozen foods and snacks and stuff. But if you want to do a big grocery shop, you have to drive about 15 minutes, which isn't a big deal. We get, you know, we're used to it. It would be nice to have a grocery store back in town, but we don't. We used to, but we don't any longer. So that's my agenda. And then tomorrow is the Christmas cantata that I'm practicing with a bunch of other people since October. So it's at the Baptist church. And it should be very nice. It's lovely music, and it's at 3:00 our time for it's about 45 minutes long. It's free. It sets the tone for a lot of, you know, people's Christmas. So yeah, so that's what's going on.
Yeah. So you were a Catholic, right? But you go to Baptist.
Yeah, I grew up Catholic, and I went to Catholic elementary school through 5th grade, I think. And I was a brownie and a Girl Scout. Brownies are the younger ones. Then you fly up to be a Girl Scout as you get older. And then after I left elementary school, I was done with that stuff. I suppose you could have kept going, but yeah. And then I went to public school with my brother. I remember it was $14 a month. I can't remember. I don't know if that was for each of us or if that was for one of us. But I remember that, you know, if there was first me and Ronnie, and we both went to Catholic school, and then the rest of the kids started coming. And at that point, you know, it might have been too expensive to keep us in Catholic school. So we went to public school.
Okay.
And we used to walk, you know, it wasn't an issue of transportation. We lived close enough that we could walk home, walk to school, and walk home. But yeah, I'm glad that I went to Catholic school from the angle of I got a good basic education in reading and phonics, and yeah, that part was important. And I had a very strong connection with Mary, and because there was always a May crowning, that's her month. And there was, you know, the little girls that made their first communion that year. You do it in 2nd grade if you go to Catholic school. And there's a big celebration, and the rosary is a big deal. And it's usually in the hottest, well, May starts to get hot. And it's usually everybody standing out in the hot sun in their crinkly dresses, right? You know, and the boys were wearing little white suits. But it was a good, you know, and to this day, built there was a statue of Mary, a full size, almost full size. She's seated holding the baby Jesus. And that was in the school, I think, when I was a kid. Now they built a shrine around it. And so you can go 24 hours a day, you can go and visit. And what's cool is there's a labyrinth on the ground next to it. And so just like in Chartres Cathedral, it's that fancy one. And you can sit and, you know, contemplate, or you can walk the labyrinth and visit, you know, and light a candle. And so it's a nice, when I go back to Cleveland, I always do that. I always go there.
You go to your school all the time?
Yeah, the school, I don't go in the school, but I always go to the shrine. And if I have enough time, sometimes I walk the labyrinth, but I always go back. I always go back. And I went to kindergarten in a different school. We were still living in the city when I was in kindergarten. And then we moved to the suburbs. So from first grade to through fifth grade, I went to this school run by the Nuns of the Incarnate Word. I think they were from Ireland. Ireland, or forget which, or maybe both. And yeah, they ran the school and lived above the convent was above the school. And the first time I saw a dead body, one of the nuns had died, right? And they took us upstairs to see her. And they didn't ask, at that time, nobody sent notes home. Can we take your kid to see a dead body? So they had us walking by her coffin, and I must have been very young, like second, maybe third grade. And I remember looking at her clothes, thinking two things. She was very tiny, what was left of her was very tiny, and her clothes kind of just were droopy on her, but just kind of interesting. I know I wasn't afraid, but I was checking her out, it's like, oh, okay, that's what she looks like. So yeah. so much for elementary school.
Yeah. So I was about to ask you about your school only. So if you remember any more, like it doesn't matter which grade and what all, but whatever comes to your mind next about your schooling, you can.
There was then when we went out to recess, the nun that was the principal would come out with this humongous bell, and she would ring it, and then that meant we had to stop, and then the second bell was you could walk in and get in line and then go back inside, right? And most of the nuns were older, but there were a couple young ones, and there was one especially young one that was very athletic. I don't remember if it's the same one that was there until just not long ago, but she would always play kickball with the boys. She didn't really want to play with the girls because the girls were doing other stuff. She wasn't into hopscotch or jump rope. But years later, I think her name was Sister Monica. I think that was her. Years later, after the shrine had been built, there was a nun who took care of the shrine and got the money for the candles. And I think it might have been her. But even if it wasn't her, there was a building near the shrine where they had mass every day, or at least a couple times a week. And it doesn't take long for the word to get around that the nun there is doing some charismatic stuff, is doing some unusual, slayed in the spirit stuff. So I went one time, and you go up front, and she puts her hands, as best I can recall, after the mass, you would line up and she would get in front of you. And I can't remember whether she touched me or she just put her hands above me. But I remember her saying to me, don't resist. Don't resist. And then the next thing I knew, I was like on the floor because there was somebody behind you to catch you, right? And so I don't recall what happened when I was blacked out for just, a few seconds. But I do recall on the way home, I was driving. On the way home, I had to pull over because I was like unsettled. I had to, whatever energy she got put in me from the Holy Spirit or whatever was still working in my body, and I had to pull off the road and just get centered and get grounded. And and people would go all the time. I had just heard about her, and I'm not sure whether she's still alive or whether all the nuns are gone now. But yeah, she was pretty, that was my first experience of any kind of, spirit connection through the church. I have like a lot of kids experiences of having to go to your first confession before you make your communion, and that's kind of a daunting situation because you have your little prayer book and you have to go down the list of all these things that you did wrong and try to tell the priest how many times, and it was so confusing. It was a nightmare for most of us because you didn't know if the guy was going to come through the little screen and yell at you. You didn't know what to expect. It was kind of spooky. So there are parts of it that we could live without. The fear part.
Yeah.
But in general, it was, I was glad to be there, and I was glad to go on to public school and experience whatever was after that. Yeah.
Public
What else?
school,
Go ahead.
public school
Oh,
was not
um,
like this. Public school was not like this.
no,
But go ahead with, yeah.
public school, there was no religious education at all, no prayers in the school then or anything. So it was very cut and dry, just uh yeah, just academics. And you had a recreation and there was art, and we had music that we did have art in elementary school. I don't remember if we had music. I recall there was a nun that had a statue of the baby Jesus when he was young. It's called the Infant of Prague, and it must come from Austria or something. But she had this statue that was about this tall under a glass dome, and she would change its clothes all the time. And I was fascinated with clothes, of course. And I always wondered, I can't remember if she did it weekly or daily or whatever, but as an adult, I realized she was changing it to the colors of the liturgical calendar. So on days, the liturgical color was red, and the next day it was green. And this little baby doll, this little plaster baby doll, had all these clothes. And the basic dress was white, but the cape over it was usually a color. And I was fascinated with her, but also glad I didn't have her because she was not a pleasant lady. Which I recognized a lot of these women were probably going through menopause, right?
Yeah.
We kids, we didn't know anything about that. And so, you hear stories about the nuns coming around with the rulers and smacking your hand. And they did all that. I mean, they really did all that. But part of it was because they were dealing with little kids all day long. Their hormones were going crazy because I don't know if they gave the nuns anything to help with their hormone balancing. I don't know. I never knew anybody well enough to ask them that. But yeah, most of the nuns were middle-aged. They seemed old to us, but most of them were probably in their 40s and 50s, I'm guessing. Maybe and 60. Yeah. They taught, they taught for a long time, and then when they couldn't teach any longer, I suppose they lived in that convent, and maybe they helped at nursing homes or stuff. I'm not sure. I don't know. My kindergarten teacher was my mother's next door neighbor, and they were girlfriends. And this lady was from an Irish family, a big Irish family. And she did not become a nun until she was like 28. So she was smarter and wiser and had seen more of the world. And she was very nice. She was always pleasant. And I remember she used to man the prayer line and pray for animals and everything. I learned this afterwards. She stayed a friend of mine, until she died. So there were a lot of different personalities, and each of these nuns belong to a different order, like a different sect. Yeah, kids from Catholic school have a lot of stories. lots of stories. But the one about, Sister Monica and falling over in church, that was way cool. And when every time I go, I light a candle, usually for my family and for sure for Austin. And as an adult, I was living with my brother and sister-in-law, and they lived just a couple streets from that shrine. And I had been traveling around Europe for a while, Scotland and places, and every place I went, if there was a church, I lit a candle for Austin because he and I were estranged at that time. And so I was at the shrine one day in summer, and I had just lit a candle for him. And I came back to my brother and sister's house, and he called after years, of not talking to him. So I just kept lighting my candles and, saying my prayers. And so it means so much to me because I saw a lot of miracles, happen. And I have a little prayer card in my wallet. And the nun that wrote it was my first grade she was one of my earliest teachers. I just know it was written in 1956. And she wrote in this very lovely handwriting, a little thing on the back to me. And I have kept it all this time. Yeah, it's just a real pretty little picture of Mary. So,
yeah.
So much for elementary school.
Yeah. So after that,
then you go to what's called junior high, which is sixth grade was still sixth grade. It must have been sixth. Let's see. Yeah, sixth grade is still considered elementary in that area of Ohio. It's still, so I got the tail end of a public elementary school, one sixth grade, and it was a man teacher, and he was way into reading, and because I could read so well, he fussed over me a lot with reading, which was way cool. I remember that. And then you go to 7, 8, and 9, which is middle school, and then 10, 11, and 12 was high school. And different states, it's different. Different states in the union, it's different, or not the union, but in America, it's different. But yeah, so my class they kept building more schools. And so I went to sixth grade at that public school. Then my class got sent to another middle school for seventh grade. We got sent to another school for eighth grade. And we got sent to another school for ninth grade. And then finally, when I got to 10th grade, was the high school. I stayed in one place for 3 years. And yeah, but we all moved around together because they kept building new schools because there were so many kids. And they would bus us. I mean, we were on the bus for a long time, sometimes considering, but it was fun. You gotta, the bus was pretty calm, then, and everybody sat in their seat. And so, yeah. What do I remember? I remember about junior high school. I remember I had an my English teachers affected me a lot. And I guess that's why I went into journalism. I had a woman English teacher who was way into grammar. And then my high school English teacher was the reason that I went to Bowling Green and went into journalism. I didn't want to write, though, because there was so much bad publicity at the time about yellow journalism and what was in the newspaper and could you believe it and all that stuff. So I knew that I wanted to go into the production and hands-on stuff. So I studied photography and graphic design and putting together the newspaper layout. And then when I got out of school, when I got out of college, my first job was for a small industrial publication in downtown Cleveland. So fortunately, I did get to work in the journalism field for a while, for quite a while, after I got out of school. So I did not enjoy high school because I felt a lot like I was an outsider looking in. And my best girlfriend was 89 pounds soaking wet. She was tiny, tiny. And I felt like an oaf next to her. And I'm not that big. In high school, I think I weighed 100 and somewhere between 118 and 122 most of the time. But next to Judy, I felt humongous. And to this day, she's the same size. she lives outside of Chicago with her husband and her kids and grandkids. But I always compared myself to her, and that did not help me any. I was one of those kids that joined the clubs, but always felt like an outsider. Couldn't really be 100% in it because there was so much of me that's going, oh, I'm not good enough. I don't know how to do this. All that stuff. So I didn't enjoy high school very much. And my high school, to this day, my graduating class of 66 still gets together. And every time I'm out of town and down here, they have a gathering. So I've never been able to meet up with them. One of these days, I'm going to synchronize when I go and visit some of the kids. But yeah, they're all in their mid 70s like me. And it's interesting. There's some of them that aren't around anymore. Some of them that didn't make it out of the military. Some of them that you had no idea were going to have such interesting careers and experiences. So yeah. So there's a lot of me that doesn't jump in 100% with the high school crowd because I didn't enjoy it the first time, and there's a bunch of me that goes, I'm not going to enjoy it the second time around either. But who knows? We'll see. So
Yeah. So you didn't have a friend also for your this thing for in your high school?
did I have a friend, you're saying?
Friend like as in a group, like I had a group of friends whom I I was close to.
Uh-huh.
There were
And
two groups, no, for 4, 5, 6 girls together because they can relate to each other. So that is how
yeah.
the groups are there. But again, we found out about each other after so many years, and now we have a group of uh, school friends,
Oh,
about
that's
40 of them, 40, 50 of them are there.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In a in
No,
a in a WhatsApp group. Yeah.